If someone told me that one day I'd be standing in the middle of my own living room in Denver, being questioned by my boyfriend over a random man's name that appeared in a work email, I would have laughed. But that night, Marcus was blocking the doorway, phone in hand, his voice calm but tense. "Who's Daniel on the event schedule? Why didn't you mention him?" I had just walked in from an 11-hour event shift, still wearing my coat, and suddenly I was explaining myself like an employee getting reviewed. And I'm just a woman coming home from work, not a suspect in an investigation. I'm Laura, 29, a hotel event coordinator. My job is busy, messy, and comes with late nights, and I'm used to that rhythm. I'm independent, capable, social enough, but not overly outgoing. I used to think I had pretty good judgment when choosing who to date. Marcus, it's my boyfriend, seemed like the stable kind at first, gentle, patient, slow to speak. He works in freight logistics, very detail-oriented, a bit shy socially. Early in our relationship, he made me feel safe, like a man who respected personal space and didn't demand too much. But that version of him didn't last. Marcus had been married for 3 years. He told me his ex-wife cheated on him while they were in the middle of buying a house together. She had an affair with a coworker he trusted. He found out through messages he stumbled upon on her laptop. He lost trust, and also lost a chunk of his savings when they had to sell the house and split everything. I felt genuinely bad for him when he told me. Anyone would be traumatized after something like that. When he said he was scared he wouldn't notice the signs again, I even reassured him, "It's okay, I understand." I thought being clear and steady would gradually help him feel secure again. And at first, it really was just small requests. He asked for my Instagram password so he could feel less anxious. I gave it. He asked to share locations because I often worked late. I agreed. He asked to see my work schedule so he'd know when I was free. I didn't see a problem. Each individual request felt minor, reasonable, even protective. I didn't realize those tiny requests were puzzle pieces forming a bigger picture. I wasn't suspicious. I didn't think being too kind could also be dangerous. Marcus didn't shout, didn't rage, didn't throw accusations. He observed silently, remembered everything, and asked questions in a soft voice. That quiet approach made it too easy for me to comply. Slowly, I let him into parts of my life that should have remained mine: work emails, internal event schedules, my break times, the people I talked to during shifts. He asked about everything, just to be sure. When he first reviewed a work email I sent, a completely harmless message to a client, I assumed he was just curious about my job. When he asked why I spoke to a male technician during light setup, I thought he was being a little sensitive. When he questioned the men's names in my event rosters, I tried to brush it off and explain. I didn't want to trigger old wounds. But over time, the questions felt less like concern and more like interrogation. How many men were at the event today? Why didn't you pick up for 12 minutes? This message was sent at 9:47 p.m. Where exactly were you then? Small questions, constant flow. I started asking myself whether Marcus was being caring or controlling. And if he was only a hurt man, then why did I feel like I owed him proof of my innocence every day? The night he blocked the door and asked me to open my laptop so he could recheck my guest list, for peace of mind, something clicked in me. He didn't want healing. He wanted control. He treated pieces of my life, my time, my communication, my work, as if they were evidence he had the right to check. And I, out of sympathy, patience, and thinking I was strong enough to absorb his insecurity, let him step way too far in. I saw it clearly when I caught my reflection. On my laptop screen, a tired woman, brows tense, someone who didn't look like herself anymore. And I realized, if I kept trying to shoulder this alone, I might lose myself before he ever loses his doubts. After the night Marcus blocked the door and demanded to check my laptop, everything escalated faster than I could process. He started video calling me at random times, during staff briefings, while I was reviewing timelines, even while I was running across the venue with a walkie-talkie clipped to my collar. If I didn't answer within 10 seconds, he'd text nonstop, "Where are you? Why didn't you pick up? Who's around you?" At first, I kept explaining, but after a while, it didn't feel like I was communicating with a boyfriend. It felt like I was reporting to someone who was monitoring my every move. If someone walked past me during a call, Marcus would immediately ask who that was. Small questions, constant pressure, and my mind stayed tense like a wire pulled too tight. Talia, my closest coworker, was the first person to notice I wasn't myself anymore. She saw how I jumped every time my phone buzzed, like I had done something wrong. One night, Marcus called right when I was instructing the servers on table placement. He insisted I rotate the camera to see the room better. I laughed nervously and spun the camera quickly so no one noticed, but Talia was right behind me watching the whole thing. After the call, she pulled me aside and asked straight out, "Are you okay? This isn't normal." I brushed it off, saying he was just anxious. But deep inside, I knew it had become more than anxiety. Marcus also began interfering with my job in ways that genuinely scared me. One evening I was 30 minutes late getting home because a client asked for last-minute changes to the floral arch. When I walked in, Marcus didn't ask whether I was exhausted. He asked, "Why didn't you tell me? Why are you home later than you said?" Then he opened the location history app and pointed at a stop my car made at a print shop, where I had gone to print name cards. "Why were you there for 8 minutes?" he asked. I explained calmly, but he kept pressing like he was uncovering a lie. From that point on, I found myself calculating every detour, every stoplight, every quick errand, not because I needed to, but because I feared triggering an interrogation. The breaking point at work came when Marcus called my manager, Vivian, without telling me. He wanted to confirm why an event that week ended later than expected. I didn't know about this until Vivian brought me into her office. She wasn't angry, she was concerned. She showed me the caller ID and said, "Your personal situation is your business, but having someone contact management to ask about your schedule is not acceptable." I apologized, stumbling through an explanation I didn't believe myself. I walked out of her office burning with embarrassment. I had let my private life spill into the one place where I needed stability the most. But things didn't stop there. Marcus began tracking the patterns of my workday. He asked why a male client messaged me a thank you note after an event. He questioned why my phone was on silent during timeline runs. He asked why a technician named Ryan always seemed near me. He even suggested I move to a department with fewer male interactions for his safety, which was both absurd and terrifying. I didn't understand how my job, a job I've done for years, had suddenly become a threat in his eyes. And each question stripped away another layer of confidence I had built in my career. Then came the car tracking app. One night, Marcus sent me a screenshot showing every stop my car made that day. "Just making sure your car isn't having issues," he wrote. But reading that message made my stomach drop. He wasn't just watching my phone anymore, he was watching my commute, my stops, my routes. I felt like someone had mapped out my life without my consent. The worst part was when he started pointing out signs that I was changing. He said I avoided eye contact more. That I placed my phone face down. That I silenced notifications when I got home. All of that was true, but not for the reason he thought. I wasn't hiding anything. I was tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of being inspected. Tired of proving innocence I never lost. Every vibration of my phone felt like another test. I wasn't living for myself anymore, I was living to prevent his next suspicion. The pressure finally pushed me into behaviors I never imagined. I avoided male coworkers so he wouldn't ask questions. I avoided female coworkers because I didn't want Marcus thinking I was covering something up. I replied to work messages faster, afraid he'd question delays. I rehearsed explanations in my head before speaking. When a woman starts rehearsing her day like an alibi, she's no longer in a relationship, she's in containment. I felt trapped, not by a physical threat, but by an emotional cage disguised as concern. I knew I had to act, but I didn't know how. Marcus didn't yell, didn't insult me, didn't get violent. He only asked questions. He only checked. He only wanted to feel safe. But those things stacked on top of each other became something heavy and suffocating. A cage doesn't need to be loud to hold you. Sometimes it looks like care. Sometimes it looks like fear. But it's still a cage. And the moment Marcus said, I don't want to make the same mistake again. So everything must be clear. If you're not hiding anything, you shouldn't be afraid of me checking. I realized this had gone far past insecurity. It had become entitlement, his belief that he had the right to my entire life, simply because someone else betrayed him. That was the moment I finally admitted to myself, this was no longer about his past. It was about my freedom disappearing piece by piece. Everything started cracking on that Thursday night, the night I only wanted to shower, eat something warm, and go to bed early. The event had run all day, and the moment I took off my shoes, Marcus asked, why did your car stay in the parking lot for 14 extra minutes after the event ended? I sighed and told him exactly what happened. I sat in my car, drank water, and called Talia about the guest list. But he didn't believe me. He said my tone sounded different and demanded to know who was near my car. I was so exhausted I didn't even want to argue. The less I talked, the more he assumed I was hiding something. He grabbed my phone and said, I'm just checking. This time, the violation didn't feel like irritation, it felt like losing a right. I stood up, snatched my phone back, and said, enough. Marcus froze for a second, surprised by my reaction. He kept his voice soft but coded in control, Laura, if you're transparent, there's nothing to be uncomfortable about. The more you hide, the more I wonder. I stood in the middle of the living room feeling heat rise in my chest, and I finally saw it clearly, I wasn't hiding anything. He was using his past trauma to justify turning me into a shield. Marcus didn't want a partner, he wanted a guarantee. He wasn't trying to heal, he was trying to monitor. And I had been letting him because I thought sympathy was the same as support. The twist came when I received a message from my manager, Vivian, at 9 p.m., come to my office tomorrow at 10. It's about a call from your boyfriend. Before I could even reply, Marcus asked, who texted you? Show me. I held my phone up high, out of reach. His expression changed instantly. Not angry, not loud. But something cold. He grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to injure, but firm enough to erase the illusion of boundaries. You're making this harder, he said. If you were honest, I wouldn't need to check. Hearing that sent a chill straight through me. I stepped back, my heart pounding. The first thing I asked wasn't even defensive, it was, what did you say to Vivian? Marcus hesitated, then admitted, like it was normal, I just asked if your schedule matched what you told me. And I asked, some other people. That phrase, some other people, hit me like a brick. Who? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. Marcus avoided my eyes and said quietly, a few people from the tech team. And the guy who handled the timeline. My whole body went cold. He had called multiple departments at my workplace. Not one time. Not one person. Many. Then Talia texted, Marcus just called me. You need to be careful. It felt like ice dumped down my spine. Marcus had contacted my coworkers behind my back. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see a hurt man. I saw someone who believed he had the right to audit my life. Someone willing to cross every boundary to confirm the story he already believed in his head. Someone who couldn't differentiate fear from entitlement. The real breaking point was when I said, you cannot come to my workplace tomorrow. You cannot call anyone there again. If you do, I'm leaving. Marcus didn't yell. He just stared at me like I was betraying him. Then he said a sentence I'll never forget, you can't leave me. I already lost everything once. I won't let that happen again. The way he said, won't let, wasn't begging. It sounded like a warning. That was the moment I realized, I was no longer safe in my own home. The next morning, when I walked into Vivian's office, she closed the door immediately. She wasn't annoyed this time, she was genuinely concerned. She set a folder in front of me containing a list of 3 calls and 2 emails Marcus had sent to the department that week. All of them were about verifying my schedule, with questions so specific even I felt unsettled reading them. Vivian spoke slowly. This is no longer just a personal matter. This is harassment toward our staff. She was trying to be respectful of my privacy, but she also had a responsibility to protect the workplace. I apologized, this time not out of embarrassment, but out of acknowledgement that I had let things get way too far. After the meeting, Talia pulled me aside and said bluntly, "You need to get out. As soon as possible." She told me Marcus had called her 3 times in the past 2 days, asking technical questions only someone in the industry would understand. She said his voice wasn't loud or aggressive, it was calm, measured, almost clinical. That description alone made my stomach twist. At that moment, I knew I couldn't keep pretending this was something I could fix by reassuring him. This wasn't about anxiety. This was about control. People who are hurt try to rebuild trust. People who are obsessed try to manage your life. Marcus had crossed that line a long time ago, and I had been too afraid to admit it. I texted Marcus and told him I wanted to talk face to face. He agreed right away, relieved, thinking I had finally come around. But this time, I didn't go home. I chose a crowded coffee shop near my office, somewhere public, somewhere safe. When he sat down, I placed the folder Vivian gave me on the table. I spoke clearly, without shaking, "These are the calls and emails you made. You contacted my manager, my colleagues, even the tech crew. You crossed a line." Marcus scanned the pages, his face draining. Then he said, "I just wanted to make sure." I replied, "No. You wanted control." When he reached for my hand, I pulled back. "We're done," I said. The sentence felt lighter than I expected. Marcus tried to keep his tone calm, but I could hear the strain in every word. "You're leaving me because I care too much?" I answered directly, "I'm leaving because I'm not myself with you." He tried to twist the responsibility back onto me, saying I'd changed, saying I was withdrawing, saying I made him this way. But I wasn't arguing anymore. People who want control will never accept blame. I stood up, placed the house key on the table, and walked away. For the first time in months, I breathed without preparing to justify myself. That night, I moved in with my sister. I disabled location sharing, changed all my passwords, and told HR I needed boundaries reinforced with an individual outside the company. Talia texted me, calling it escaping the cage. Vivian emailed later to confirm there would be no disciplinary consequences for me, since Marcus's actions were considered a breach of workplace boundaries. For the first time in a long time, I felt a mix of relief and grief. This relationship didn't end with shouting or dramatic scenes, but the quiet, steady erosion was its own kind of damage. Marcus texted me a few times afterward, long messages filled with apologies, insisting he only acted out of fear, that he loved me too much, that he panicked. I read them all. I didn't reply. Because I knew this cycle would repeat. He would apologize, then monitor. Apologize, then question. Apologize, then accuse. His trauma wasn't mine to carry. I wasn't his therapist. I wasn't responsible for healing wounds I didn't cause. I was simply the next person he tried to contain. And when I deleted his last message, I realized something important. The thing I needed to prove wasn't that I wasn't like his ex. It was that I wasn't going to lose myself just to soothe someone else's insecurity. No one ever taught me that love needs boundaries. But now I know, boundaries don't push people away. They protect you from disappearing. Walking away from Marcus wasn't selfish. It was survival.